Hello and welcome to math, where today we're going to learn about dilations. Okay, so a dilation is a transformation that produces an image that is the same shape but is a different size. So you can kind of look over here. This A, B, C is my original triangle, and then this A prime, B prime, C prime, that is my new triangle. So you can see that it's the same shape, it's just that it enlarged in size, right? Okay, so what else? Unlike other transformations, a dilation is not a rigid motion. It's not like when we did translations, like we counted like 5 over to the right and then down 4, right? It's not moving in a specific way. It's just becoming either bigger or larger, bigger or smaller. Okay, the center of dilation is the point in which a figure is dilated. Our center of dilation is always going to be the origin. You could change the center of dilation, but in pre-algebra, that's all you're going to see is the origin as the center of dilation. Okay, a figure that has been dilated has just been multiplied by a scale factor. All right, so dilation is a reduction, meaning it gets smaller if your scale factor is less than 1. And it gets bigger, or enlargement, if k is greater than 1. So if your scale factor is less than 1, it gets smaller. If your scale factor is larger than 1, it gets bigger. If your scale factor is 1, it stays the same. So less than 1, smaller; bigger than 1 gets bigger. Okay? All right, let's keep going on. All right, it says graph the figure and its image after a dilation with a scale factor of 3. So first, let's plot these points, this J, K, and L. I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's J, there's K, and there's L. And we can see that it makes a triangle, right? Okay, so then it says there's a scale factor of 3. So that means we're going to times each of these by 3. So let me change the colors. That way we can put our new dilation on there. All right, so that means I'm going to take each point and multiply it by 3. So -2 times 3 would be -6. 3 times 3 would be 9. So that is my J prime, my new J. So -6, 9. So I go over -6, I go up to 9, and I put a point. And it's going to be, that's J prime. All right, so now I'm going to do the same thing for K. So K is 0, 1. All right, so 0 times 3 is still 0. 1 times 3 is 3. So that would be 1, 3, 0, 3. So 0, that'll go left or right. 3 would be right here. And that would be K prime. That's my new K prime. K prime. All right, my last one says 3, 3. So I multiply both of those by 3. And 3 times 3 is 9. So this would be 9, 9. And that's going to be L prime. So I go over to 9 and then go up to 9. I put my point, and then that is L prime. All right, now I just connect my dots and make my shape, and you can see it's the same shape. It's still this triangle. It's just gotten enlarged. It's gotten 3 times bigger because our scale factor was 3. Okay, so same thing. Let's do this one. It says graph the figure and its image after a dilation with a scale factor of 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to plot these 4 points first to see what my first image is. So I'm going to plot those. There's A, there's B, there's C, and then there's D, and then I can connect my dots. And I can see it makes like a rectangle, right? So I got that rectangle there. And now it says I'm going to make a scale factor of 1/2. So that means I'm timesing each of these by 1/2. Well, another way of doing times 1/2 is we can also divide by 2. Timesing something by 1/2 is the same thing as dividing it by 2. So I can divide each of these points by 2, and that'll give me my new image. Let's change the colors here so we can see it a little different. So I'm going to divide each of these by 2. All right, so -8 divided by 2 is -4. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Ooh, that's an ugly looking 3. Let's do it. -4, 3. So go -4 up to 3. And I put a point, and that is my A prime. A prime. All right, now let's do B. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that's going to be 2, 3. So I'm going to go over to 2, up to 3. And there is my new point for B prime. So remember, the prime just means like what your new point is after your transformation. And it's, you put the little tick mark next to it. All right, C is 4, -4. So that would be, half of that would be 2, -2. Right, so that would be C. I go to 2 and then go down to -2. Put a point, and that's going to be C prime. And then my D is -8, -4. Half of -8 is -4. Half of -4 is -2. So negative 4, negative 2. I'll go from negative 4 down to negative 2, and then there is d prime. D prime. All right, and just like before, I can connect my dots and make my shape, and it should be the same shape, and it is. It's this rectangle. Well, that line's not perfectly straight, but you guys can see the point, right? Okay, so it's the same shape, it's just that it gets either larger or bigger, or larger or smaller. If the scale factor's less than 1, like this one's a half, it got smaller, right? The one we just did before that, the scale factor is 3, so it got 3 times bigger, okay? And that's how you do dilation. You just multiply each point by the scale factor. All right, let's try this example. This one says determine the coordinates of the image after it's been dilated by k equals 2. So give us r, s, t, u, and they want us to find r prime, s prime, t prime, and u prime. So that means we have to take each of these points and we have to times them by 2. All right, so r, regular r, I see is at 0, 1, negative 1, 0. The x value is negative 1, the y value is 0. It's right here, right? So now I want to multiply those by 2. So negative 1 times 2 would be negative 2. 0 times 2 would be 0. So negative 2, 0 would be r prime. So that would go like right here, right? That would be r prime. R prime. S, let's see what S is. That's at negative 1, my x value, and 4 on my y value. So if I times that by 2, negative 1 times 2 would be negative 2. 4 times 2 would be 8. So that would be negative 2, 8. So I'm going to go over negative 2 and then go up to 8 and put a point. And that's my S prime. All right, let's see what T is. The original T is at 2, 3. So my original T was at 2, 3, right? So if I'm going to make my new factor, I'm timesing it by 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 2 is 6. So that would be at 4, 6. So I go over to 4, I go up to 6, and I put a point. And that is T prime. T prime. All right, and then my last one there is my U, which is this one. That's at 2, and then down to negative 1. So my original was 2, negative 1. I want to multiply it by 2 to get my new point. My new point, 2 times 2 is 4. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. All right, so 4, I go over to 4, and then I go down to negative 2, and I put my point, and it's going to be right there. And that is U prime. U prime. All right, and then I can connect my dots and make my shape, and it should be the same shape. I'm doing it by a mouse here, so it's not going to be perfect, but you can kind of see it's the same shape between those. The original one and the new one, it just got larger. So dilating something either makes something smaller or something bigger, and since this was a scale factor of 2, that means that it's getting larger. All right, another way they can ask this, they could say, what is the scale factor? So if we're trying to figure out what the scale factor is, first we got to figure out if it's getting bigger or smaller, right? So this one I see A, B, C, D, and I see A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. So remember the prime is your new image. The one without the tick mark is your old image. So my old image is smaller than my new image. So that means it's gotten bigger. It's getting enlarged, right? So it's getting bigger. So now I'm trying to figure out how much it's getting bigger by. So to do that, I got to figure out what point is. So let's do A. So A is at negative 1, 1. A is at negative 1, 1. All right, what is A prime at? Let's try and figure out what that is. A prime, let's see, that is at negative 3, 3. Negative 3, 3. So what can I times negative 1 and 1 by to get negative 3 and 3? Well, they multiplied it by 3, right? So my scale factor is 3. It got 3 times larger. Negative 1 times 3 will get me negative 3. Okay? Let's do the next one over there. Let's do the same thing. So is this getting bigger or smaller? So I see I have P, Q, R, and I have P prime, Q prime, R prime. So the primes are inside of the original. So that means that this one is getting smaller. It's getting reduced or reduction. All right, so what is my scale factor? Well, I gotta do the same thing and figure out one of my points and then figure out its prime. Let's do Q. You can use any of the points, it doesn't matter. Let's do Q. Q is at negative 2, 4. Q is at negative 2, 4. All right, so now I got to figure out what Q prime is to see how much it changed by. So what is Q prime? Q prime is at negative 1, 2. Negative 1, 2. So how did it change? Well, how do I go from negative 2 to negative 1? How do I go from 4 to 2? Well, 4 to 2, I would divide by 2, right? So my scale factor is a half. We divided it by 2, or multiplied by a half. All right, here's one you can try on your own. It says check. It says determine the scale factor of the given dilation. Go ahead, pause the video and try this one on your own. Unpause it when you are done to check your work. Okay, so if I was doing this one, hopefully you pause the video and try it on your own first. All right, and this we're checking our work here. If I was doing this one, I got to see what's prime and what's not. So the smaller box here is primes, right? These are all my primes. These are not. So my primes are my new ones. So it definitely got smaller, right? This is the original image, this big rectangle, and the small rectangle is my new image. So it got smaller. So I know that my scale factor has to be less than 1. So that means it can't be A and it can't be C. I know for a fact it can't be those two because it's getting smaller, all right? So now I'd have to figure out how much is it getting smaller by. Well, let's see, what m's at -5, 8, all right? -5, 8. Let's write that down, -5, 8. That's what m was at. All right, let's see what m prime's at. M prime is at like -0.5 and 2. -0.5 and 2. All right, so how can I get from 8 to 2? Would I multiply it by a half or would I multiply it by a fourth? I would multiply it by a fourth because 8 divided by 4 would get me 2, okay? So just by knowing it got smaller, I knew that I can get 2 rid of 2 of my answers, and I just had to figure out one of my points to figure out which the scale factor was, okay? All right, so that's dilation. Dilation is making an image either bigger or smaller, and if it's getting bigger, your scale factor is larger than 1. If it's getting smaller, your scale factor is smaller than 1, all right? If you have any questions, please feel free to ask a teacher, and I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.